Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be breaking down the Atlanta Falcons versus the New York Jets. Let's start with the home team, the Atlanta Falcons. But this game is actually not going to be played in Atlanta. This game is going to be in London, and it's a very early game. I believe the game starts at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so be ready for that. Know that any Falcon or Jet that you have, if you're going to play them, put them in your wide receiver, running back, or tight end spot so that it gives you more flexibility for the 1 o'clock games. All right, let's get started with those Falcons. Matt Ryan, no thank you, hard pass. Wide receivers, Calvin Ridley, unfortunately, did not travel to London for this game. He had a personal matter. I'm not quite sure what that was, but he won't be traveling, so he's not going to be in your lineups. Unfortunately, I hope he gets through whatever he's dealing with. It's very unfortunate that he's not going to be able to play, but there are things that are bigger than football. So moving on to the rest of the receivers, I'm really not trying to play any of them. Next to the running back, I think that Cordell Patterson is going to be even more involved in the passing game. I think he's going to be fantastic play this week. Running back 2 for sure with upside. Next we have Mike Davis. I think Mike Davis is a solid running back 2 because he's going to get the work. On the ground at least. Cordell Patterson is getting more work in the air, but Mike Davis is getting the work on the ground. I think you can fire him up as a low-end running back 2, high-end flex play. Next, we have the tight end position, and Kyle Pitts should show out this game. He should have a fantastic game, but he hasn't done great so far this year. I would say it might be because of the targets, but he had 9 targets last week. Yes, I think the targets go up, but I don't see it going higher than 12, 13 targets. So it's what he can do with those targets. I think he should have a great game. This should be his breakout, and I see him as a top 6 lock. Next, we have the defense, and if you're desperate, you can play them against the Jets. The Jets haven't been playing great, but the Falcons are a terrible defense, so I would really personally like to stay away from them if I could. And you can start the kicker if you want. Moving on to the New York Jets. Starting at the top, Zach Wilson is not start-worthy yet. I think you keep him on the bench or the waiver wire. Next, we have the wide receiver position, and Corey Davis, I think, is a solid start for this game. The Falcons don't scare me in the secondary, and I think that Corey Davis has proven that he is a solid wide receiver. Same thing with Jamison Crowder. I think you fire him up. Corey Davis I have as a high-end flex play, and Jamison Crowder I also have as a flex play. I think they both have solid upside because Atlanta doesn't scare me, and I think Zach Wilson's going to be throwing the ball. Next, we have the running back position. Michael Carter is the only one that you actually need to be looking into, and I'm kind of meh on him. I feel like if you're desperate and you need a flex, fine, but other than that, hard pass. And I'm not trying to start the Jets defense or their kicker. All right, that's going to do it for the fantasy breakdown of these teams. Now it's time to get into Pigskin Pick'em. The Falcons are 3.5-point favorites in this game. And I know that it's a home game, but they're playing in London, so it's basically an away game for everybody. So give me the Jets in this one. I got the Jets by 3.5. I think Zach Wilson keeps this game close. Even if they don't win, I definitely think it's going to be a close game. All right, that's going to do it for this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. And good luck in the rest of your matchups. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the matchup between the Detroit Lions versus the Minnesota Vikings. Let's start off with the Vikings in this game. Starting at the top, Kirk Cousins is a solid play against the Lions. I definitely think you can get 2 or 3 touchdowns out of him. The Lions don't scare me, and the Vikings desperately need this win. So I think they get this win in a big fashion. Next, we have the wide receiver position. You're firing up Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Justin Jefferson as a wide receiver 1, Thielen as a wide receiver 2 with upside. He's always a threat to get a touchdown, so I fire both of them up. I'm not starting any of the other wide receivers. Moving on to the running back position, Dalvin Cook is still dealing with this injury. He's projected to possibly play, but if he does not, hopefully you have Alexander Mattison out there. I did see him dropped in a few leagues. I don't know why, but people were dropping him. So check to see if he's on your waiver wire. And if he is, obviously scoop him up. If Dalvin Cook plays, you play him. If he doesn't play, you play Alexander Mattison. That's how we're playing this moving forward. Next, we have the tight end position. Tyler Conklin. He's had some up and down games. I think if you're desperate, you could throw him in there because they should be winning this game, and they definitely are going to get multiple touchdowns. So there's always a chance for him to get a touchdown. Moving on to defenses, I think you could could play the Vikings defense as well. Obviously, the Lions are playing terribly, so I think that should be fine. Moving on to the Detroit Lions. Starting at the top, you have Jared Goff, hard pass. Moving to the wide receiver position, I'm not sure who you would trust on this team. I'm going to hard pass all the wide receivers for the Lions. Moving on to the running back position, I definitely think you fire up DeAndre Swift. I know he had a terrible game last week, but he's getting work in the passing game and in the running game. He does seem to be splitting carries with Jamal Williams, but I like the receiving work that he's getting, so I think you can fire him up as a low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2. Next, we have Jamal Williams. I actually think if you're in a pinch, you can start him. I have him more as a flex play, though, if you really need it. Moving on to the tight end position, TJ Hawkinson apparently has a knee injury that we need to be looking out for. Monitor his health status on Sunday. You definitely want to make sure that he's going to be healthy before you put him in your lineups. And no thank you to the defense, no to the kicker. And that's going to do it for the fantasy breakdown of this episode. Now it's time to pick the spread and pigskin pick 'em. ESPN has the spread at -7.5 Vikings. I was checking out the Vegas line though. They moved that up to 10 points. I'm definitely taking the Vikings in this one. I think they win by more than a touchdown. They are hungry for a win. They need to start winning if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive, and I don't think the Lions are going to be standing in their way. So that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you like this content, there's more episodes talking about each game this week as well as the Eliminator Challenge. Good luck in your matchups. I'll see you later. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the New Orleans Saints versus the Washington football team. We're going to start off with the New Orleans Saints. I'm actually going to keep this one pretty brief because there's really only a couple people you're starting. You're not starting Jameis Winston. You're not starting any of the receivers. And moving on to the running backs, Alvin Kamara is an absolute beast. And everybody knows he's one of the best pass catchers in the league. Why aren't they using him that way? He got the most carries of his career, which is amazing. That's awesome. That was one of the things we wanted to see more of. We wanted to see him more in the running game. But he had 0 targets. What do you mean he had 0 targets? Come on. That being said, they did lose this game. I'm hoping that was a snap back to reality. Well, there goes gravity. Seriously though, I definitely think they're going to be getting Alvin Kamara more involved in the passing game, at least than they were last week. He's known for his pass catching, so I don't think we should be too concerned about that. I still have him as a top 5 play. Next, we're moving on to the tight end. No, defense, yes. Washington is not the best offense in the league, and they throw some reckless passes, so I think that they could be a solid play this week. Next, we have the Washington football team. Starting off with the quarterback position, you're not starting Taylor Heineke. And at the receiver position, you have Terry McLaurin, the only receiver you're going to be starting in this matchup. He's an absolute beast. I have him as a low-end wide receiver 1. He should have a tough matchup against Marshawn Lattimore, but I do still think that he should be fine. He has had terrible matchups earlier this year, and he's proven that he can beat them. So I don't think he has the normal upside that he has, but I still think he has a fine game. Moving on to the running back position, Antonio Gibson has been dealing with a shin injury so far this year, but it looks like he's going to be able to play. I'm not as excited about him as I was early in the year. I think he's more of a running back 2 than a running back 1 at this point. And J.D. McKissic doesn't seem like he's going to be as involved as you need him to be fantasy viable, so pass on that. Also, Logan Thomas unfortunately went down with an injury. The team has placed him on IR, so he's going to be out at least 3 weeks. It may be longer than that depending on how he's looking, so we'll keep monitoring that moving forward. I'll have updates for you whenever we get them. Moving on to the defense, I think the defense is startable against New Orleans. Jameis Winston throws picks, everybody knows that. So there's always a chance that he throws some picks. I'm actually curious to see how long Jameis keeps this job. That's going to do it for the fantasy breakdown of this matchup. Up next, I'm picking the game against the spread and pigskin pick'em. ESPN has the Saints as a 1.5 point favorite. It's not a big enough spread. I'm taking the Saints on this one. I think that the Saints get this job done. Washington has pulled out some impressive wins, but some of the wins that they've had have been a little fluky for me. I think the New Orleans Saints are fired up that they lost that game last week, and they're going to come back with a vengeance. So I'm taking the Saints in this one. All right, that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. And if you want to check out any of the other matchups, just look at my page. All right, good luck this week. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the New England Patriots versus the Houston Texans. So let's start off with the New England Patriots. Mac Jones has been playing okay, but he's not good enough for fantasy yet. Moving on to the wide receiver position, Jacoby Myers is the only one that I would even really look at, and I have him more as a flex play with upside. Damian Harris has had terrible matchups in these last few weeks, but I definitely think that he's going to be playing better in this one. The Houston Texans do not scare me at all. Damian Harris should have a field day in this one. Fire him up as a running back too for sure. Next, we have the tight end position, and both tight ends scored. It's actually kind of surprising that it took this long for it to happen, considering they're both the 6th highest paid tight end in the league. How is Bill Belichick going to pay them that much and not get them involved? I'm happy that they each got a touchdown last week. I don't trust either of them yet, but if I had to pick one, I guess Hunter Henry for now, but I'm really not confident about it. I have it more of as a coin flip. I would prefer not to start either of them, to be honest with you. Moving on to the defense. This is going to be the best defense this week. You got the Texans that are already bad with a backup quarterback. Fire them up. Patriots are going to be amazing. Number 1 defense this week. Next, we have the kicker, and sure, why not? I know they missed the kick against the Bucs, but this is the Houston Texans. They suck. So I definitely think there's going to be more scoring opportunities in this one, so fire up your kicker. Next, we have the Houston Texans, and I'm going to make this one brief. I'm not starting anybody other than Brandon Cooks, and if you have a substitution for Cooks, look into it. I just don't like the matchup. The Patriots defense is going to be all over the Texans, and if we know anything about Bill Belichick, he locks down your number 1 option. It's what he does every time. It's his go-to game plan. And their number 1 option is Brandon Cooks. So he's going to be like a vault, baby, a lockdown. I still think he's going to get the targets, but he has no ceiling. So he's a flex play with upside. All right, that's going to do it for the fantasy breakdown of this matchup. Up next, we have Pigskin Pick'em. The Patriots are 9.5-point favorites in this matchup. That's one of the highest spreads of the week. Honestly, I think that's a little too high. I think the Patriots win, but I don't think they win by 9.5, so I'm going with the Texans. And that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. And if you like this content, check out my page and find all the other breakdowns this week, as well as Eliminator Challenge. All right, good luck in your matchups this week, and I'll see you on the other side. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Miami Dolphins. We're going to start off with the Bucs in this one. Starting at the top, quarterback position. You're obviously firing up Tom Brady. I know he didn't have a great game last week. It was raining. He was going against his old team, and it was emotional. I'm pushing that game to the side. Moving forward, Tom Brady is still an elite quarterback. Fire him up every week. Next, we have the wide receiver position, and you're playing the big 3. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. All 3 of those are fantastic play. I have them as wide receiver 2s. Moving on to the running back position, and Ronald Jones is not as relevant as people thought he would be. Yes, he got the touchdown, but Leonard Fournette was really getting all the work. So bench Ronald Jones and fire up Leonard Fournette as a running back too, surprisingly. Moving on to the tight end position, unfortunately, my man Rob Gronkowski is going to be out in this one, I believe. So if you're desperate at tight end, Cameron Brate would be the tight end I would go for. Tom Brady tried to link up with him last week, but it just was not working out. It was raining and they just weren't on the same page. I think they'll be better this week. Moving on to the defense, fire them up. They're definitely going to be like top 3 this week against Miami and Jacoby Brissett. So I think they're going to be great, and you can play the kicker. Moving on to the Miami Dolphins. Miami. Starting with the quarterback position. Tua is still out, so Jacoby Brissett's going to be the starting quarterback. Hard pass. Moving on to the wide receiver position, Jalen Waddle has been really up and down with his targets. One week he has 13, the next week he has like 6. So I definitely think that he's going to be hard to trust. But if you're going to beat the Bucs, you're going to beat them in our secondary. So I think that Jalen Waddle and Devontae Parker are fringe flex players. If you don't have anybody else, I do think that they are going to get some targets because they're not going to be able to run the ball. So I definitely think targets go their way, and there's going to be garbage time. So fire them up if you're desperate. Moving on to the running back position, Myles Gaskin has been horrible. Luckily, I didn't draft him anywhere, so I don't have to worry about it. But for all of you out there who do have him, Hopefully you have been able to play the waiver wire and find another backup, because I wouldn't be playing him if I didn't have to, especially against these Bucs. Yikes. Moving on to the tight end position and one of their bright spots, Mike Gesicki. I was a little worried last week. I had just picked him up and I decided to play him, and he didn't have very many targets in the first half. But in the second half, when they were down, they started peppering him with targets, and he got that late touchdown. If the Dolphins are going to want to keep up with the Bucs, they're going to have to score the ball, which means they're going to have to throw it because they're not going to be able to run it. So Mike Gesicki, I think, is a benefactor of that. Fire him up. Moving on to the defense, no. Kicker, no. All right, that's going to do it for the fantasy breakdown of this game. Now it's time for Pigskin Pick'em. So the Bucs are a 10.5-point favorite against Miami at home. I'm still going to have to go with those Bucs. I think that they're upset about how the last week went. Yes, they got the win, but they didn't dominate how they wanted to. I think that this game is the domination that they were looking for. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to hit me up. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. And if you like this content, I break down every game on my page, so go check it out, as well as the Eliminator Challenge. Good luck in your matchups, everybody. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Green Bay Packers versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's start off with those Bengals. Joe Burrow's been fairly solid these last couple weeks. I think that if you're desperate, you can fire him up as a high-end quarterback too with upside. I think that he's going to have to score in this game, so if you're desperate, fire him up. Next, we have the wide receiver position. Jamar Chase is definitely a wide receiver 2, as well as T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins is going to slide back into that wide receiver 2 mold. He's been out for the last couple weeks, but the trainers say he looks good, so fire him up. I think he's going to be good this week. Next, we have Tyler Boyd. And Tyler Boyd filled that void last week while T. Higgins was out. So I think that he's going to reduce his role a little bit, but he'll still be involved. So if you need him, he's a flex play. Next, we have the running back position. And unfortunately, Joe Mixon is dealing with an injury. He may sit out in this game. They're going to try to test it out on Saturday, but there's a chance that he misses this game. If he misses the game, then I think Samaje Perine slides in, not as a Joe Mixon role, but I think he is the lead back in a platoon of other running backs. But if Joe Mixon starts, do you start him? I'd look at the report and see if there's going to be a snap count or anything, because if there is, it would definitely take away from his upside, because his key is volume. Next, we have the tight end. CJ Uzomah had an amazing game, career game for him last week, and that'll probably be the best game of his career. But that doesn't mean that he can't have good games in the future, so is this one of them? Possibly not with T. Higgins coming back, but with Joe Mixon out, they might want to pass it to somebody else. So I think that if you're desperate at tight end, which I am in a couple of leagues, and they're deep leagues, 14-team leagues, it's slim pickings out there when people are holding 2 tight ends. So there's a chance I have to play him this week. Hopefully not, but you're saying there's a chance. And moving on to the defense, no. Kicker, no. All right, moving on to the Green Bay Packers. This one's fairly simple. Aaron Rodgers, a beast. Fire him up. Wide receivers. Devontae Adams is incredible. You fire him up. Randall Cobb is a little tricky, but if you don't have anybody else and the waiver wires are bare, I do think that Randall Cobb will get involved, especially if MVS is out. I think that he should be involved. So if you're desperate, fire him up. I have him below a flex play, but he can clearly vault into that flex play. Next, we have the running back position, and of course, you're playing Aaron Jones. He's an absolute beast, so fire him up. I won't be playing A.J. Dillon unless there's an injury to Aaron Jones, so we're just going to keep moving forward on that one. Tight end, if you're feeling lucky that Robert Tonyan's going to get a touchdown, fire him up. I have him as a low-end tight end 1 because he can always get a touchdown. He's playing with Aaron Rodgers. Next, we have the defense, and I'm kind of meh on this defense. I don't think that they're great, but I also think that the Bengals are going to score the ball. They're going to pass a lot, and I just think there's some better options out there. Moving on to the kicker, you can start Mason Crosby if you feel like it. All right, that's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this game. Moving on to Pigskin Pick'em. So the Green Bay Packers are actually only 3.5-point favorites above the Cincinnati Bengals. Give me the Packers. I think this is a low line for Green Bay. I think Aaron Rodgers should win this game fairly handily. So I'm taking the Packers in this one. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to hit me up. I also have breakdown videos for every game this week, as well as the Eliminator Challenge on my page. And so that's going to do it. Good luck in your matchups this week. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Denver Broncos. Let's start off with those Steelers. Big Ben's been playing terrible, so get him out of here. You're not starting him. Moving on to the wide receiver position. Deontay Johnson is clearly the wide receiver that you want on this team. He's getting the targets, and that's what you're looking for in fantasy football. Fire him up as a wide receiver 2. Next, we have the other two, and those are really iffy. Chase Claypool, if he plays, flex play at best. I'm really not trying to start him. Or Juju Smith-Schuster, who has finished 70th or worse in the last 2 weeks. No, thank you. Hard pass. You should probably have better options out there. I would prefer to get one of those over this. The Broncos defense is actually pretty solid. Next, moving on to the running back position. If you fire up Najee Harris, he has everything that we wanted from a fantasy running back. He catches the ball, he runs the ball, but most importantly, he's always on the field. Opportunity is king in fantasy football, and he definitely has the opportunity. The Broncos have been the best team in the league against the running back, but Najee Harris gets most of his work in the passing game, so fire him up. I definitely think that he's going to be involved in the passing game because they have to move the ball somehow, right? Next, we have the tight end. No. Defense. Yes. I definitely think this defense is going to do work against the Denver Broncos, and hard pass on the kicker. Moving on to the Denver Broncos. Teddy Bridgewater is in concussion protocol, but I believe there's a chance that he plays this Sunday. Check that. I don't think that you're starting him, but it does change how you view the rest of the players on this team. Moving on to the wide receiver position. Courtland Sutton has had a rough couple weeks. He's been 60th or worst in the last 2 weeks. I do think that you can play him, but I have him more as a high-end flex play with upside. Especially because this Pittsburgh Steelers defense is not what it used to be against wide receivers. It used to be like a vote, baby, lockdown. But that has changed this year, so I think that Courtland Sutton could be a fine play. Tim Patrick is a flex flyer at best. I definitely think that he still has the talent, and he can get a big play. But are we predicting that in this game? I think this is going to be a low-scoring affair, and the lower the score, the less points that are scored, both fantasy and real life. So I'm going to pass on him unless you don't have any other options. But he can get one big one. All right, moving on to the running back position. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams are both on the same tier for me. They're playing the same amount of snaps. They're getting the same amount of touches. I have them both as low-end flex plays. The Steelers' run defense is actually pretty solid. They're 5th against the running back this year, so it's really not a good matchup for them, and they're splitting the carries, and it's going to be low scoring. Nah, I'm good on them. Don't start them unless you have to. Moving on to the tight end, Noah Fant. There aren't very many tight ends out there that are going to get more targets than him, so fire him up. And the defense, I think you can play against the Pittsburgh Steelers and pass on the kicker. All right, that's going to do it for the fantasy breakdown of this episode. Moving on to Pigskin Pick'em. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 1.5 point favorites in this one. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not super confident about this, but I'm going Steelers. I don't think the Steelers are going to go down to 1-4 at home in Heinz Field. Nah, I just can't see it. I think that they find a way to get this done. Mike Tomlin's a great coach, and I think he figures this one out. All right, that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. And if you like this content, I have videos on every game and picks against the spread. So check it out, as well as the Eliminator Challenge. So good luck this week, and I'll see you on another video. Peace. Good afternoon, Bay Nation. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Bay. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and today we're going to be going over the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Carolina Panthers. So let's start off with those Eagles. Jalen Hurts, I think, is a fine start this week. I know that Carolina is a good defense, but I think he's going to get enough with his legs to get this done. Next, moving on to the wide receiver position, Devonta Smith had a solid game last week. But the Carolina Panthers have proven that their defense is very solid. So I have him more as a flex play this week with possible upside if he gets loose. And I'm not starting any of the other receivers. Moving on to the running back position, Miles Sanders has not been good. I would prefer not to play him. He's a flex at best in my personal opinion. I'm really trying to avoid him though if I can. He has not been above running back 37 in the last 3 games. Hard pass. So if you're desperate, fine, but I'm not that desperate. Actually didn't draft him anywhere, so I can't really say that. Moving on. I'm also not really starting Kenneth Gainwell. Like I said earlier, the Panthers defense is very good against the run and the pass, so I'm really not trying to play with that. Moving on to the tight end position, Dallas Goedert. I mean, I think that you can fire up Dallas Goedert as a low-end tight end 1, but with Zach Ertz there, they're really going to be splitting the tight end targets. But if I had to pick one, Dallas Goedert, fire him up. Low-end tight end 1, and Zach Ertz is probably going to end up with a touchdown and make all of this irrelevant. Moving on to the defense, no thank you. Kicker, no. All right, let's talk about those Carolina Panthers. Starting at the top. Sam Darnold has proven that he is fairly solid. I think he's a pretty good quarterback. Fire him up. He was the #1 quarterback last week. That's incredible. I have him as a fringe top 12. I can't put him in my top 12, but I definitely think if you're not confident in your quarterback, definitely play Sam Darnold. He's a good quarterback, and the Eagles don't really scare me. Moving on to the running back position. People were discussing the fact that Christian McCaffrey could come back this week. I think that he's going into the week doubtful, so he's probably not going to play. If he does play, obviously you fire him up. He's the best running back in the league for a reason. But if he doesn't play, Chuba Hubbard is going to be fine. I think that you could play him as a running back 2. Next, we have the wide receiver position. DJ Moore is a beast. Fire him up. He's a wide receiver 1 right now, man. This guy is really proven that he can play, and Sam Darnold's doing a good job of getting him the ball. Next, we have Robbie Anderson, which everybody thought he was going to be the one getting the ball. He just got the new contract. Sam Darnold and him used to play football back when they were in the New York Jets. So why is he not getting the targets now? Well, last week he got the targets, but Christian McCaffrey was out. So if Christian McCaffrey's out, I do think that Robbie Anderson could be fairly solid. I have him as a flex play if Christian McCaffrey's out. If he's in, I'd be really hesitant to start him. Moving on to the tight end position. No, thank you. And Carolina defense, maybe. I think that they're a fringe play this week. I think if a lot of the other good defenses are taken up and you're scrounging for a new defense, I think the Carolina Panthers could be pretty solid. And that's going to do it for this fantasy breakdown. Now it's time to talk about Pigskin Pick'em. The Panthers are actually 4.5-point favorites in this game, and I'm not taking that. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles, even if they don't win this game, I think they can keep it close. I know that the Carolina Panthers were looking good last week. I think the Eagles should be able to pull it together a little bit. Not going to lie, not super confident about this one, but I believe in Jalen. I think he should be fine. All right, that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. And if you like this content and you want to break down of any of the other games, check out my page. Also, I take care of the Eliminator Challenge as well. Good luck in your matchup, everybody. I'll see you soon. Peace.